If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus, to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love. Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. Just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these. When we love the least of these. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for January 24th, 2018, the 8th year of Cheongi, the 12th month and the 8th day by the heavenly calendar. I'm Tim Eller and Ted O'Grady here with me this morning for the second king of Cheonryuk, Hyung Moon, who is on a trip.
That's great.
Yes, by God's instruction. He was in Switzerland last weekend, and now, as you will see on his Instagram page, he is in, I think, since he's got it on Instagram, I guess we can say, he's at the SHOT Show.
At the SHOT Show, okay.
In Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, okay.
Yes, or at least he was. I think he may have moved on to the next leg of his trip by now, but he was at the SHOT Show there with the Car Arms people and others. And if you go to his Facebook or his Instagram site, you can see many interesting photographs there. The current weather at the Cheonryuk is 39 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. Today it's 39 now, but the high is 34. I have another one of those strange days.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Where the daytime high is actually lower than the nighttime temperature.
It's been like that a lot around here.
Well, yesterday it got up to into the 50s, and so it was kind of a spring day. So we're coming back into winter now. Today we're flowing back into winter.
Okay.
So tonight it's going to get down to 17 degrees. That's more winter-like temperature, right? That's what's supposed to be in winter, yes. And tomorrow 31. So it's going to be back into winter now after that spring day that we had yesterday. All right, let's go to our Remus. I want to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses, we're going to start reading at verse 36. But if any man think that he behaveth himself uncomely toward his virgin, if she passes the flower of her age and needs so require, let him do what he will. He sinneth not, let them marry. Nevertheless, he that standeth steadfast in his heart have no necessity, but hath power over his will, and hath so decreed in his heart that he will keep his virgin, doeth well. So then he that giveth her in marriage doeth well, but he that giveth her not in marriage doth better. So Paul here is saying that Jesus is coming. He's coming again soon, and when he comes, he's going to give us. He's going to bless us in holy matrimony, in God's blessing. He's going to give us the opportunity to graft ourselves onto the physical lineage of God. So by the fact that he's saying people should not marry, Paul had some indication that God's kingdom was to be not just a spiritual but also physical. Otherwise, why would he be telling people to keep their virginity as much as possible until Jesus came again? Yeah? So it seems to me that Paul maybe knew more than he was writing here. Father, one time, or maybe said this more than once, but once that I know of, said if there were just one mention in the Bible, true parents.
Yeah,
my course would have been a lot easier.
Yeah, I remember that.
So maybe there were things that that they knew, or maybe they got dropped off in the while they were putting together the Bible, and maybe they somehow got destroyed or something. Even now, yesterday, more fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls were deciphered. Right?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, there was they take these little tiny pieces and try to decipher them. Maybe one of these days they will decipher one that says true parents.
That would be great.
or physical kingdom or something like that. But anyway, so Paul is talking about absolute sex here. And absolute sex is important because that is how God's lineage, heaven's lineage, is planted on the earth and is spread on the earth. The history of restoration has been a history of a war between two lineages, Satan's lineage and God's lineage. And Paul here is saying, as much as possible, keep yourself pure, and keep your daughters pure, so that when the Lord comes again, he can plant God's lineage on this earth. I think that's what I get from this verse. Yeah.
Paul kind of gave an allowance. He's talking about the realities of people dealing with their sexual desires or whatever, which are normal, and he said at one point, I think, it's better to marry than to burn.
Yeah, that's right.
So the discipline of being a disciple, also, Tim, is we're called to for absolute sex, for discipline in sex, in order for us to love God first, really. Our first love is to Heavenly Father, to God.
And so when Father started the Blessing Providence in 1960-61, he gave an opportunity not just for people who had preserved their virginity, but also among the 36 couples, there were 12 people in that category, and Reverend Kim Young-Fi was sort of the representative person in that. He was one of the three disciples, and even among the three disciples, there were these three categories. Reverend Kim Young-Fi and his wife were an example of two people who had preserved their virginity and had no thought of getting married until Father brought them together.
Okay.
Whereas then there were two other categories. One was where they were sort of had feelings for each other at least.
Okay.
And Reverend Yu and Mrs. Sagilcha were the representative. Mrs. Sa, who sometimes who's well known for straight speaking.
Okay.
Mrs. Sa, right?
I don't know her.
Oh, you don't know her? Of course you know. You may know her by a different name. Mrs. Yu, maybe you know her.
Oh, Mrs. Yu, okay.
Okay, that's right.
Okay.
Koreans in their names. But Korean women don't change their last names when they get married.
Okay.
So
right.
In Korea, she's Mrs. Sa.
Okay.
But here, because it's customary for women to change their names to take on their husband's name. So here, I guess she's known as Mrs. Yu.
Okay.
Anyway, she and they were also. Her couple was also among the three main disciples of Father.
Okay.
And that was their category. Then there was Reverend Kim Won-pil, who was married before the blessing.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
And he was married by Father before the blessing.
Oh, really?
But he was not blessed, all right? So,
okay.
Yeah, because when Father married him, it was not yet time for Father to begin the blessing, because he did not yet have a bride. Father himself did not yet have a bride who was united with him. He had, the first wife, Mrs. Choi Son-gil, but she was not able to complete her mission. And so at the time that Mr. Won-pil Kim was married to his wife, Father was still looking for the next candidate, the next person, person. And of course, Hak Ja-han was eventually chosen for that. But before that, so Father married Won-pil Kim. So he approved the marriage.
Okay.
But so there were these three models that Father established, and three ways that the Father established, so that everybody could receive the blessing, not just people who had preserved their virginity, but people who. So even among the three disciples, and then expanding from that, the 36 couples, there were 12 couples in each of those categories among the 36 couples. So Father was very careful to open the way for the blessing to everyone, not just looking at people who had preserved their virginity. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what Paul is talking about, and it's significant that we, I think, are given this rima as we prepare for next month's blessing, the cosmic true parents of heaven, earth, and humanity, Cheonryuguk Book of Life registration blessing.
Right.
Yes.
If you think about it, Tim, just what you just explained, it's such a grace of God.
Yes.
For Father to make that choice to include everybody.
Absolutely.
Yes. Didn't have to.
That's right.
He could have said only virgin couples. So if you think about it, that also would make Father's course more difficult, more complications. And as we can see, as things go on in relationships, things tend to get complicated and difficult and entangled and integrated and ups and downs, which is kind of the nature of masculine, male, and female relationships. So that's really an expression of the merciful love of God, that Father thought about that. And Father was willing to open the door for everyone. And in the same way, Tim, with the Book of Life registration blessing that we're having now, again, God is opening the door to everyone.
Yes.
To receive this blessing on the same level.
Yes,
so it's an expression of God's providence and God's unconditional love for humanity.
Yes. And
desire of God within his heart to include all of humanity, to bring all of humanity into the kingdom of God together. We're all this. It's kind of like Jesus said, the last will be first and the first will be last. So we can't be jealous about that.
Yes.
We can't resist that. So everyone comes in the door at the same time to receive the same blessing.
Yes. Praise God. Praise God. Yes. God is merciful. He loves us. And of course, Father, could have said, you know what? I'm just going to do my family.
Yeah.
Forget everybody else. I'll just save enough people to provide spouses for my family, and then we'll start a family, and we'll expand God's lineage from there. That would have been a strategy.
Could have,
but that's not what he did. No, he says, I want to save the whole world because God is suffering. In order to liberate God, I have to save the entire world because God is suffering over the fact that there's so many people are falling away from Him and don't know Him, and are suffering because of that separation from God. So it truly is God's grace that we are able to receive the blessing. None of us are qualified to receive the blessing. It is only by the grace of God that we are able to do that.
Amen. Yes. That's so true.
Yes. Yes. And then I have a Cheon Song-kyung Rima this morning from the book on the Pacific Rim Providence. This is book 12, and I wanted to, towards the beginning, actually the second paragraph in the first chapter. In the future world, it will be necessary to industrially develop the resources of the world's oceans. I've already created a variety of enterprises that embrace all aspects of the fishing industry, ranging from the manufacture of large-scale fishing boats to the construction of the fish hatcheries and farms. In the future, the sea will supply food to many of the world's people. Naturally, development and cultivation of the sea will truly become a preferred method for bringing an end to the starvation that plagues humankind. When I read this, I'm reminded that this illustrates the fundamental difference in thinking between Father and the world's elite today.
Right.
where Prince Philip and Prince William and others in the elite are saying things like, the real problem with the world today is overpopulation.
Right.
Father's not saying that here, is it?
No.
No. Father's saying that basically he's implying that the more we have, the better. The more, the better. Because, we all reflect different aspects of God, and God is more people that God creates, the better. And we'll figure out how to feed all those people.
Yeah.
We've got the ocean, and the ocean has plenty of resources, so we can feed all these people. And I never saw him say this, but I'm sure he would have if he had. We can go to other planets as well. Okay.
You always bring that up to me. What's this about other planets?
I want to go.
Okay.
We're still in the beta testing phase, all right?
Okay.
It's here on Earth.
Okay.
And we have this kink that has this bug called original sin that has to be worked out. But once we get that worked out, once we get to God's lineage firmly planted here on Earth, and once we have the new Constitution, then we can scale up to the rest of the universe. But anyway, Father doesn't go there. All right, so I will. That's just my opinion. But I'll bet you I'll bet 10,000 years from now, I'll bet that'll be true. But anyway, Father is talking about feeding the world, feeding the world. He's not talking about reducing world population.
No.
He's not talking about giving the kind of health care that's going to reduce world population like Bill Gates does. All right?
Yeah.
What kind of health care is going to reduce the world population?
Vaccines.
Yes, abortions. Yes,
Abortions
and vaccines. That's right. In fact, Bill Gates, he said, with improved vaccines and improved health care, we can reduce the world's population. That's exactly what he said.
Health care is a euphemism for abortion.
Exactly.
It's like culling the herd. This is their attitude.
Culling the herd. Yes,
the
that's
human
right.
beings are just expendable. But think about how Father pioneered the ocean.
Yes.
How much he loved the ocean.
Yes.
Father loved God's creation to the depth of God's creation. And no one else did that. I remember when Father, I had a friend of mine, Kid Ogden, who was a dear friend of mine, a brother who was a fish boat captain for Father and knew Father and, would take Father out fishing. And he was telling me about the providence when Father wanted to expand the fish industry in the USA when Reagan was president. And Father had a plan for like 200 boats or 200 ports. And the idea was that we would go into the ocean and we would open up the 200-mile frontier, the 200-mile border that the U.S. has.
The exclusive economic zone.
And apparently the U.S., the fishing industry is so underdeveloped because people just don't want to go out to the ocean. And we can see even after Father's passing, the actual interest in the fishing industry has diminished because it's very difficult and it's a hard life. It's a tough life. I myself took advantage of fishing just a little bit when I was a student at UTS. I would go fishing with Father on the Hudson River, and occasionally we went out in the ocean, but I never had the opportunity to go tuna fishing. But then also in Brazil, Father would always fish in the Pantanal, and wherever he went, he would fish. But to go into the deep ocean and to look at the ocean and the treasures and the resources of the ocean itself, which are unfathomable, which are really yet to be explored. And Father would always seek out the places on earth that are yet to be explored.
Right.
And Father would love those places. His mind and heart went there. His mind and heart went down to the depths of the ocean to seek for the riches that God has planted there that are still unknown.
Yes.
And he did the same thing in the Pantanal in Brazil, which is the largest freshwater wetland in the world. And there are something like 3,000 estimated species of insects and fish that are yet undiscovered. And Father almost couldn't help himself but to want to go and touch and to explore those things. And that I often think, since I've been here a few months, is just looking around here in Pennsylvania and noticing the mountains and the trees and the wilderness and all the lakes. And it really brings to mind how true Father just had a bubbling heart and a burning heart to explore and to touch and to feel and to, on behalf of God, to give joy to God, to acknowledge God's creation, and to expand that. And that's where the thought comes, as you said now, that God is infinite.
Yes.
Population is infinite.
Yes.
You know, every human being is infinitely valuable. Has the same value as the cosmos. So
That's
all
right.
these black babies in Africa and Kenya, Nigeria, and even all the Muslims that are, you know, struggling with their horrific religion. Every single human being has divine nature planted by God.
Yes.
And that's what we're on the path to discover that within ourselves, and then we touch that in the created world and in other people. That causes the explosion,
Yes.
which can separate us from the devil and allow us to plant the Chanukah Constitution.
Yes. And that is where the elite disagree with us.
Yeah.
They say that no, only we have value because we got lots of money and we got lots of you know, whatever the treasures and stuff like that, and we have positions, stuff like that. And other people are just, all they do is eat resources. All they do is use up resources, and they don't produce anything. So we need to get rid of them. We need to reduce those useless population because they don't have any value.
Right.
So that is a fundamental difference, and that is the fundamental difference in thinking right now. That is the big war that is going on now.
Yes.
Between those who, as you said, believe that each individual, you know, because if you're a piece of infinity is also infinite. Yeah?
True.
And then for people who give value to each individual human being from that perspective, even the unborn have that value.
Yes.
And over here you have the value that no, people are valuable only in terms of what they can produce and what they can contribute to the elite. That is the only value that they have. So those are two fundamental different cultures and thinking that are clashing right now.
Right.
And that's what we see going on day by day
Yes.
in the Providence. Yeah.
In fact, I think President Trump is in the Davos group.
He's
Going to
going to
visit them,
Davos
right?
tonight.
Tonight?
He's going to be. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. He's going to fly overnight. He's going to take an overnight flight tonight, and he will arrive in Davos tomorrow morning,
Right.
Europe time, Swiss time, and he will be meeting people there Wednesday, and on Thursday he's going to give a speech at Davos.
Yeah. So that's fantastic.
That is fantastic. Yes. All right, let's take a break before we get into the news, and so we'll come back with that, with news about Davos and other things that are going on today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Struggle. There was a lot of things I really liked about Diella from the very beginning. You know, I loved her passion, the way she sang to the church, the loyalty she had to her parents, and you know, I really wanted somebody who's loyal to True Father, and I knew if she's loyal to her parents, that's a good sign. And the one memory I really have, it really helped me really decide I really want to get blessed to her, was she said that I'd always be second, and she'd always put God before me. And I knew if she was willing to put God before me, I could like fully trust her. And that was something that really moved me to, like, I knew at that point, like, I wanted to get blessed to her.
Okay, so at first when we met, we completely put each other in boxes, the famous box, and I don't know. I was praying and praying and praying, and I was just not sure in the beginning. We both weren't, and we just continued talking, and but for some reason it just didn't seem to work because we were just too focused on ourselves, I think. So, but I kept praying and praying, and then one day I was very frustrated, and I even talked with my mom, and she told me, you know what, Diella, I can see he really loves God. And if he loves God, he can fully love you. And I think that's that's what I needed to hear, and from that moment on, everything changed.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for January 24th, 2018. Tim Miller and Ted O'Grady in for the second King of Chanukgu, Hyung Moon. Let's go to this article on InfoWars. InfoWars got a hold of a FISA memo. They call it a secret FISA memo, but they also say that it was hiding in plain sight, and that all you had to have was the link. So if that's the case, it's not really secret. So I'm still a little bit confused about this memo. But anyway, let's look at what they have here. Okay. Anyways, exclusive InfoWars releases secret FISA memo. Here's the reported memo leaked to InfoWars. But this is not the memo that the House Intelligence Committee put together. That is a 4-page memo, in which House members all were allowed to see, and then came out of it. The Republicans came out of it saying, that, wow, this is jaw-dropping. This is like KGB stuff. I can't believe this kind of thing is going on in America, this kind of thing, and we got to get this out of the public. This is not that memo.
Okay.
That is a 4-page memo, and this is a 100-page memo, which, however, InfoWars is saying formed the basis for that 4-page memo.
Okay.
But we don't have time to go through 100 pages now, but people can go to InfoWars and look at it there, because they have a copy of their PDF copy that people can scroll through. But let's just go through some of the things that they highlight here. Update: despite media claims to the contrary, our congressional sources confirmed that the below memo documenting NSA spying on U.S. citizens serves as a primary source of information for the Nunez summary memo. William Binney, former tech head of the NSA, contacted us this morning to send us the link to the reportedly classified memo that lawmakers said was a blueprint for how Obama administration and the deep state spied on the President Trump. So if all you had to have was a link, and I know, you can hide things on the internet and things like that, but if it was available to anyone who had the link, that makes me wonder whether it was really classified or anyway, that's a question that I have. Okay. This memo, hiding in plain sight, serves as the basis for the 4-page memo of Representative Devin Nunes, which reveals perjury by the Obama administration when connected to other research. This is the basic compendium of the NSA abuses spotlighted by Nunes. And then the 100-page memo follows. Then below that, in the above memo, the NSA admits that U.S. citizens were targeted by its analysts through Section 702 upstream collection and vowed to make changes to its surveillance methods. This indicates the NSA and other intelligence agencies were pressured by the Trump administration to scrap its Obama-era policies that allowed illegal spying on U.S. citizens. Section 702 has come under fire, which, by the way, was recently renewed.
Yeah. Was it?
Yes, it was recently renewed.
Oh.
It was going to expire at the end of last year, and they renewed it without much publicity or even controversy, and the Republicans also voted for its renewal.
It was voted for.
Yeah, it was voted for, yes. The Congress had to renew it,
I see.
and they did it at the end of last year.
Wow.
Because end of last year, there was a small article someplace that if the Congress doesn't act quickly, this may expire, and they did. They renewed it. So anyway, that's just background there. Section 702 has come under fire in recent months due to the alleged unmasking and leaking of information about Americans, namely the associates of President Donald Trump, that was collected in the surveillance of foreign targets, reported FCW. Some members of Congress threatened in March that they would have a hard time renewing 702 before it expires at the end of 2017 unless the administration prosecutes those responsible for the leaks. And they did renew it, and they did not prosecute those responsible for the leak. So there you go there. Here's some interesting excerpts from the above memo. On page 15 of this, actually it's a 99-page memo, NSA analysts had used USA person identifiers to query the results on Internet upstream collection, even though NSA Section 702 minimization procedures prohibited such queries. So it's not so that would say that already Section 702 prohibits such things, but people are doing stuff that's prohibited. So changing the law doesn't really do you any good there. You got to go out and prosecute those who are violating the existing law, right? Okay. Page 19, since 2011, NSA's minimization procedures have prohibited use of U.S. person identifiers to query the results of upstream Internet collection under Section 702. See, the CIA and NSA and these kind of people, they're supposed to just target foreigners.
FISA is foreign, right?
It's Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
Right. So it's foreign, which means non-American.
Non-American, yes.
Okay.
And so basically the division of responsibility is that the FBI covers inside the United States.
Okay, yeah.
CIA, NSA, and those folks cover outside the United States, especially the CIA. Okay. NSA is sort of everywhere.
I see. They're like a special prosecutor.
Yeah, well, they're sort of everywhere. But so that there's supposed to be this division, and the U.S. government, because of the Fourth Amendment, is not supposed to search or
search procedures. Right?
That's right, without due process.
Right.
So unless you or I, as Americans living in America, have done something wrong or are suspected of doing something wrong, and the government or the law enforcement authorities go to a court and say, hey, you know what, Tim Elder's done this, or we think he's done this, so please give us authority to tap his phone. Unless they do that, they're not supposed to tap our phones.
Right, okay.
Okay? But now, in reality, they are violating that quite commonly. And I assume that, our phones, our internet, they're all being tapped.
You have to go back to carrier pigeons, Tim.
Yeah, go back to carrier pigeons, yeah.
Snail mail, letters.
Yes.
If you learn how to write, nice script handwriting again.
That's right, yeah.
Like my mom can do.
Yeah.
Having gone to secretarial school as a young girl. Do you ever notice how people's handwriting is crap nowadays? And we can't even spell?
Let's focus on this memo. On October 26, notice informed the court that NSA analysts had been conducting such queries in violation of that prohibition with much greater frequency than had previously been disclosed to the court. The government still had not ascertained the full range, on page 21, of systems that might have been used to conduct improper U.S. person queries. So they're, thing, but this really doesn't look to me like a smoking gun.
Alex Jones was really playing this up yesterday.
Yeah, and it is something that Alex Jones can play up because it's something that he got, and that I can understand that. Page 33, information acquired by FISA electronic surveillance and physical search, which often involve targets who are United States persons and typically are directed at persons in the United States. But I want to see the 4-page memo because that's the one that Republicans have been really playing up. And we haven't seen that yet. And that's the one that needs to be released. And perhaps the revealing of this will put more pressure on Congress to release that 4-page memo. Because that's the one that, is supposed to make our jaws drop. It's supposed to be worse than Watergate. Worse than Watergate? I mean, that's like saying the nuclear weapons we have today are bigger than Hiroshima. Worse than Watergate. We've gone way beyond Watergate, long time ago. Come on now.
Was Watergate like just a break-in into a hotel room and guys going around with flashlights,
Well, Watergate was President Nixon using the FBI and CIA to basically recently the word weaponize is used very commonly, but basically weaponizing the FBI and CIA.
Yeah.
That was what really got President Nixon in trouble.
Isn't there a question about Watergate that Nixon didn't even know about this? Actually,
again, let's focus.
I thought that was
news
the
of
case,
today. News of today, not news of 40 years ago, 45 years ago.
That whole scenario has a big impact on the news today. The whole
so
Watergate
anyway,
scenario.
Watergate was nothing compared to what goes on today. All right, let's see. I wanted to go to Trump going to Davos, but before that, well, let's do Trump first. All right,
Okay.
we can do the opioid thing a little bit later. President Trump is going to Davos today. He's flying out this evening on an overnight flight to Switzerland, and he will arrive there in the morning Swiss time, and he will spend Wednesday meeting with various leaders, and then Thursday, apparently he's going to give a speech there. U.S. President Donald Trump will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, British Prime Minister Theresa May, and other world leaders when he attends the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland this week, White House officials said on Tuesday. Trump is due to take an overnight flight on Wednesday night to snowbound Davos, where he will encourage investment in the United States and cooperation on national security issues, including the fight against Islamic State and North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Trump will have a full day of meetings in Davos on Thursday and then deliver a keynote address to the forum on Friday. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Speech is on Friday, before returning to the United States later that day. White House senior economic advisor Gary Cohn says Trump will use his speech to encourage global companies to invest in the United States and take advantage of Trump's corporate tax cuts. He will also stress his America First policies and seek more reciprocal trade policies from U.S. allies, Cohn said, in keeping with Trump's belief that international trade deals are tilted against the United States. The president will continue to promote fair economic competition and will make it clear that there cannot be free and open trade if countries are not held accountable to the rules, Cohn told reporters. Trump will be the first U.S. president to attend Davos in 20 years, giving him a chance to mingle with the same elite globalists that he bashed in his 2016 presidential run. In addition to meetings with the world leaders, Trump will also host a small dinner for European business executives on Thursday night. The attendees run companies that have sizable footprints in the United States. They have invested in our economy. We want them to continue to do so and encourage others to join them, said Cohn. So you're going to buy him a meal.
Okay.
White House National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster said Trump will meet with Britain's May to discuss North Korea, the Syrian civil war, and the Iran nuclear deal, which lifted sanctions on Iran and which Trump has vowed to abandon unless changes can be made. Trump and May have had a rocky first year since Trump took power, which included British anger over the U.S. leak of the name of the suicide bomber in Manchester last May. The two sides have been unable to agree on an appropriate time for Trump to visit Britain. Earlier this month, he pulled out of a potential February trip for the opening of a new U.S. embassy in London. Trump's meeting with Netanyahu will be his first one since he declared that the United States recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, a decision that has strained U.S. ties with some Arab leaders. McMaster said that in the meeting with Netanyahu, Trump will reiterate America's strong commitment to Israel and efforts to reduce Iran's influence in the Middle East and ways to achieve lasting peace. Other meetings include Rwandan President Paul Kagame, who is chairman of the African Union, to discuss trade and security. I'll bet that's not all they'll discuss. Some recent remarks about Africa might come up.
Okay.
Trump will also meet with President Alain Berset of Switzerland. Okay. All right. I love the way these people write their stories.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, can I go just really
Okay,
quickly
yes.
back to Theresa May? I can't help myself.
All right.
You've run by
There
the
you go.
UK.
He's triggered. All right.
I am a little bit triggered, but
Go ahead.
watch out for that AR-15.
It's unloaded, so it's okay.
Okay, I went to a movie this past week called The Darkest Hour.
Oh,
Have you heard of this?
no, I haven't.
So The Darkest Hour is having to do with the early days of World War II when the 300,000 British troops were trapped in Dunkirk and Calais. And it's just at the time when Churchill was coming on board as prime minister.
Yes.
So it's specifically focused on the political situation of Churchill having to gain popular support, or even gain the support of the king to make a decision what to do about Hitler. So it was very interesting because at that time Chamberlain was the prime minister, and he was an appeaser. There's the great
Peace in Our Time.
Peace in Our Time, waving a piece
Right.
of paper, and then next thing you know, Hitler invades Poland or Belgium or whatever. So at this point,
Poland,
it's like
yes.
yeah. So then
And Belgium later.
and Belgium, and so at this at this point, Hitler is in France. He's taken over France. Right. And so Churchill had to fight and had to decide what to do. And he was struggling because within his own party, he had appeasers who were strong. Halifax, I think, was the other minister, was strongly wanted to negotiate with Hitler, saying that there's no way to get these 300,000 troops out of Dunkirk, which represents the entire British Army. They're about to be destroyed, right? Without an act of God, it wasn't going to happen. And the turning point of the movie was that Churchill was struggling. The king wasn't really supporting him. His own party wasn't supporting him. He had enemies surrounding him. And he's going down Fleet Street there in London in the morning, going to work. And he's seeing all these people walking on the street. And finally he gets out of the car. It's probably a true story. He gets out of the car, goes down into the underground, the tube, the underground, the subway.
The subway.
Do Americans know what I'm talking about? The underground, the subway. Tube, the subway, yeah, right? Yes. He goes down there and he meets the people, and there's a poignant scene of him on the subway car asking the people, what would you do if the Germans arrive here, and the worst case scenario, they're up on the street here, and they're fighting, what would you do? And every single one of them stands up. We'd fight them, sir. We'd fight them, sir. Of course, in the beginning, they have this sort of endearing type of British type of deference to the upper class initially, that Mr. Churchill walks in, he's the prime minister. But then very soon, they stand up. We'd fight them, sir. We'd fight them, sir. And I hope that Miss Theresa May will stand up at this time in Davos and fight them. For her to accuse Trump of unmasking the bomber in Manchester. Do you know what happened in Manchester? Like 22...
To remind us.
Yeah, a concert where was Ariana...
Grande.
Yeah, Ariana Grande. So they were teenagers, like 16-year-old girls, like 20 of them were blown to pieces, yes. Okay, by an Islamic terrorist, okay? And Britain, and Theresa May, little Theresa May is going around criticizing President Trump. Okay, Theresa May, now's your chance to meet the alpha male of the world. You get Britain right. You get the UK right. Let's do what we need to do. Let's bring gun rights to the UK. Let's bring sovereignty and freedom. Let Churchillian Britain stand up. Get behind Tommy Robinson. Tell Sadiq Khan, your London Islamic mayor, to grow a pair. Okay? Now's the time, Theresa May. Now's Judgment Day. The kingdom is coming. The sovereign kingdom is coming. And don't let Britain, just don't do this to your people.
Yeah. It's important now to understand that what's happening in Davos with President Trump being there is a class of two ways of thinking that we were talking about.
Right.
The father's way of thinking and the elite's way of thinking.
Right.
And Trump is closer to father's way of thinking,
yes,
where he puts value on individual people. He wants to give people jobs. He wants to help people come out of poverty. The number of people who are on food stamps has gone down by 2 million since President Trump came into office. The unemployment rate has gone down now to 4.1%, and it's projected to go down more, maybe to 3.9% this year. So President Trump is creating an economy that is good for all people. Black unemployment is the lowest since those statistics began to be recorded in 1972. He's done more for He's gotten more African Americans to work to give them jobs than any other president, including Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah.
So that is the so President Trump represents the thinking that each individual is valuable.
Exactly.
And Davos represents the thinking that no, only the elites are valuable. And to put it in rather stark, sort of extreme terms, but they're more towards that side. They want to. In their mind, the biggest problem of the world today is overpopulation. But Father's thinking is the opposite. No, the biggest problem with the world today is how are we going to feed all the people that God is creating, and we can do it. And Trump has that kind of thinking. We can give these people jobs, but trade has to be fair trade. And this is the point that that a lot of the media are getting wrong, whether purposely or unintentionally, I don't know. But the idea that but America is not becoming isolated. America has to become great again, so that America can represent the Judeo-Christian ethic and civilization in the world.
Right.
It's not going to do the world any good for China to be the to be this preeminent superpower, and to bring about their values, communist values, to have the Chinese Communist Party determining human rights. But we need to have the Judeo-Christian ethic.
The elite class is essentially parasites,
Right.
pterodactyls, perching over human beings. Okay, the strength and the beauty of human beings comes from the bottom up. We actually need more people in the world. There's much more to pioneer. There's much more to do. There's a lot more fishing to do.
Yes.
There's so many things we don't know about this world.
Yes.
So we just scratch the surface of this world itself before we go to space.
Okay.
And just imagine when we go to space.
I'm holding back. I'm not going to space yet. I'm holding
Okay,
back. I'm
okay.
holding back. Yes, we do have to work out this bug called our original sin before we scale up into space. Yes. Let's take a break now and let's come back on a different topic. I want to talk about the opioid epidemic when we come back.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
It's a blessing of marriage, but you know, the blessing of marriage is supposed to be full of joy unspeakable.
I mean, the blessing itself is amazing. I mean, it was a very special experience. I mean, it was the biggest day of my life, and we had all our family there. People came from all the way from Colorado. This one couple even from Colorado came like last minute. They took like a bus to get here, and I just felt like so much love from friends, family. I felt God's love. I mean, I just couldn't believe that I was getting blessed. You know, like that day finally came, and I was just totally peaceful and excited, and it was an amazing experience.
Well, for me, there was one particular moment. First of all, the whole ceremony, I did not have one moment the feeling it was about us. It was literally about true Father giving. He was the walking God on earth, giving us the blessing which we all did not. We don't deserve, basically. And it was just so beautiful to receive that, and I felt a lot of love. And there was also a moment where Hyung was saying, "True Father is smiling," and I think he said that 3 times, and I could see that, not physically, but I could just feel him being happy, which really calmed me down, made me peaceful and happy, and it was beautiful.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, January 24th, 2018. Tim Elder and Ted O'Grady in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Moon. And I want to cover some rather shocking but important news from Philadelphia, the largest city in Pennsylvania. Not the capital, but the largest city. Fox News says that Philadelphia aims to be the first U.S. city to host safe injection sites. You may have heard of these in Europe and also in Canada, I understand. but this will be the first time in the United States. Philadelphia wants to become the first U.S. city to permit medically supervised drug injection sites as a way to combat the opioid epidemic, officials said Tuesday. The city is seeking outside operators to establish at least one such site in the city, and the move met with both support and criticism. Philadelphia has the highest opioid death rate of any large U.S. city. The mortality rate has been increasing as more than 1,200 people fatally overdosed in Philadelphia in 2017.
Wow.
That's 1,200 people in just one city alone, not the entire United States, not the state of Pennsylvania, but in just one city alone, more than 1,200 people last year fatally overdosed. And that's 1/3 more than in 2016.
Wow.
President Donald Trump declared the U.S. opioid crisis a public health emergency nearly 3 months ago. And by the way, I don't think it mentions it here, but Governor Wolf of Pennsylvania declared a state of emergency, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Heard about that.
In safe injection sites, people can shoot up under supervision of a doctor or nurse who can administer an overdose antidote if necessary. The Philadelphia Inquirer called the city's plan the most radical step yet against the opioid crisis. Dr. Thomas Farley, Public Health Commissioner, told the Inquirer that we are facing an epidemic of historic proportions. He said the sites could be a life-saving strategy and a pathway to treatment. And no one here condones or supports illegal drug use in any way, Farley said. We want people saddled with drug addiction to get help. No U.S. city has established such a site, though Seattle has set aside $1.3 million to create a safe injection site there. Injection sites are operating in Canada and Europe. Philadelphia officials visited Seattle and safe injection sites in Vancouver, where Farley said they have reduced overdose deaths, the spread of diseases like HIV and hepatitis C, and created safer neighborhoods that are free of used needle litter. The city officials concluded that a single site in the city would save 25 to 75 lives a year out of 1,200.
That's not too many.
Yeah, and millions of dollars in hospital costs and public funds at the same reduced public injection of drugs, the Inquirer reported. Mayor Jim Kenney wasn't at the news conference, but Farley said the Democrat supports the recommendation. In contrast, critics have argued the sites may undermine prevention and treatment and cause safety concerns. Pennsylvania House Speaker Mike Turzai, who is running for the Republican nomination to challenge Democratic Governor Tom Wolf, called Philadelphia's safe injection plan misguided and a violation of federal law. It is unclear how the federal government would respond if Philadelphia gets a safe injection site. The U.S. Department of Justice declined to comment on the plan. Meanwhile, the city hopes to hear from operators interested in setting up the injection sites as locations are to be determined, the Inquirer reported. Just want to point out that in the 22 Constitution, it is against the Constitution for the federal government to ban intoxicating substances, including that would include heroin and opioids. And just to clarify, opioids are synthetic. Heroin is like opium, and it is comes from natural products, plant. From the poppy plant, but opioids are manufactured synthetically to be even stronger. And one opioid that is causing a lot of problems, I don't know if you hear, but fentanyl, which is a lot of that is produced in China and Mexico and is coming into the United States across the borders. But really, the opioid crisis is very serious, not only in Philadelphia, but even in areas like this where police are dealing with, state police are busy dealing with this situation. What do you think about this, of having injection sites like this?
Well, I think the whole drug situation in America is absurd. I definitely need a new approach. I mean, I remember 20-odd years ago, William F. Buckley Jr., great conservative, was advocating legalization of drugs just for this reason, to eliminate the failed drug war, so-called drug war. But
that's right. In the Constitution, the drug war would also be unconstitutional because you cannot declare war against non-state actors such as drugs.
Right.
Yeah,
like terrorism.
Terrorism. But there's been a war on drugs, and we're not winning.
No. So, I mean, there's an interest, there's apparently a vested interest in the revenue of drugs on behalf of whomever. But sounds to me like, Tim, it might be a good approach. I mean, at least you're addressing the problem in a different way. At least you're giving an option for people who are totally desperate. If it may have the effect of reducing crime, but maybe a step of moving in the direction of legalizing drugs, or which would then force localities to be more responsible for themselves. So I think that's in general a good thing. It's a devolutionary trend, I would think.
Yeah. So there is legalization and there's also decriminalization. Two are slightly different. Decriminalization would make it more like a traffic ticket or something like that. So that people don't actually go to jail for drugs.
Okay.
And the United States, of course, has the highest prison population per 100,000 population of any country in the world right now.
Right.
We're higher than China. Higher than any country in the world. We have, and one reason for that is the so-called war on drugs. A lot of people in prison are there for nonviolent crimes, and Jeff Sessions right now is saying that the Attorney General is saying that he's going to go after marijuana users in states that have legalized marijuana, and he's going to and some of the Republican candidates, we were looking at Paul Mango's, another Republican candidate for governor this year, and his policy stance, and he's also talking about putting people in jail for drug use, for opioid use. And increasing the jail population doesn't seem to be the answer.
No. I think, I've sort of moved away from the neocon position in this as well. I mean, the libertarian approach seems to be better. I mean,
to legalize it and basically to take away the market, or, or to fundamentally change the market, to affect the market. Because that's what it is. It's a business.
Yeah, it is.
And just like any other business, they have to respond to market environment and market forces. And so if it becomes legal where these drugs become more available and there's more supply, the price is going to go down, and if price goes down, then many suppliers then will pull out of the market, and that's what happens in a free market system.
Seems like the market would take care of this problem, but if you look at the problems in the inner cities, the murder rates in Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, a lot of it just has to do with drug gangs.
That's right.
It's drug wars.
That's right. One of the candidates for governor was saying that in one county, he was talking about York County because that's where he is from. Yeah. This was Scott Wagner saying that 80% of the crime in York County is a county in Pennsylvania down along the Maryland border, 80% of the crime in York County, said, is drug-related.
Right, they're just fighting for turf.
Right.
And business.
Yeah, and also drug addicts fighting or trying to find a way to get the cash to deliver to their dealers.
Which causes robberies, house break-ins,
muggings,
murders of innocent people.
Right, yeah.
Drive-by shootings, all these horrific things. It's all related with our drug policy, really, Tim.
Yes.
So there's got to be some strong vested interest in not wanting to change the situation. There's just so much money at stake, and that's sort of the maybe that's a deep state thing. How the CIA is involved in the drug trade and the poppies in Afghanistan, which of all places in the world for there to be the largest poppy growing, Afghanistan. You think, what's in Afghanistan? It's like caves and mountains, but they have poppies.
It's not oil.
No. And we've got still a lot of troops in Afghanistan protecting those poppies.
Yes.
We fighting terrorism there still?
Let's go through some of the headlines today that we haven't yet covered. The Mueller investigation, collision course, Congress tightening noose on investigation. Meanwhile, Mueller is trying to interview President Trump. So on the one hand, the Congress is more and more pointing out the bias, the partisan bias in the investigation. See how that goes. Whistleblower says a secret society held off-site meeting, mystery, 5 months of missing messages. Agent texted about deleting texts, jaw-dropping revelations, Attorney General orders probe, knives out for the Bureau.
Well, you heard about this 5 months missing text between Agent Strzok and his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then the day after was when special prosecutor was appointed. They just happened to lose those 5 months of texts.
Yes. Tech giants given cold shoulder at Davos. World must wake up to threat. Apple killing X or 10, I guess. Apple killing 10. That would be something when a German nationalist politician converts to Islam. I have to look at that later on. Switzerland ranked best country. USA falls to 8th. Davos scientists buried in snow while lecturing on warming. That's very inconvenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
Loose pit bulls kill 5 chihuahuas in San Diego. Mother in torture house thought family was perfect for reality TV. Now, the media continues to focus on that situation, a very tragic situation. But
What is that one?
this is the one in California where about 12 children were found kind of chained and underfed and malnourished and so forth. Yeah, but 7.9 magnitude quake in Alaska, but nothing really came of that. More text alert confusion, anchors not easy to tell when big wave is coming. Ring of fire erupts in activity. There was also a situation in Japan where some skiers were surprised when the mountain they were skiing on suddenly erupted. A ring of fire erupts in activity. Fears grow for Mount St. Helens. Wild horses facing slaughter. Puerto Rico awaits foreclosure wave as moratorium expires. Where did I read that in Puerto Rico, they finally decided to privatize the power company.
Okay.
Because I think about half the island maybe still in dark after the summer is a hurricane.
Still.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find that article.
The stark contrast between Texas and Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Those hurricanes. In Texas, everyone helped out. Of course, everyone had their guns to defend their properties. And the situation there, which was as bad as Puerto Rico, probably worse.
Well, Puerto Rico was in a bad situation to begin with.
Right.
All right. So it wasn't just a hurricane. But let's look at this article on selling off their power utility. PREPA is the name of the power utility, PREPA. Puerto Rico's governor said on Monday this is last Monday, he intends to sell off the U.S. territory's troubled power utility to the private sector, saying the process could take roughly 18 months to complete. This is not going to be a quick solution, is it? No. The Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, or PREPA, has yet to recover fully from the devastation wrought by Hurricane Maria, which in late September knocked out power to the entire island, leaving all 3.4 million residents in the dark and killing dozens of people. The Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority has become a heavy burden on our people, who are now hostage to its poor service and high cost, Governor Ricardo Rosella said in a statement. What we know today as the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority does not work and cannot continue to operate like this. Less than 64% of homes and businesses are receiving power. See? That means that more than 64% are not receiving power. They're still in the dark. According to the latest data from the U.S. Department of Energy, PREPA had promised that most of the island would have power by the end of December. The new plan calls for 30% of power generation to be from renewable sources. Well, there you go. With the renewable sources, just whatever source, all right, just turn the lights on.
Exactly.
Rosella described how this politics for breaking up the company would occur in 3 phases, calling it a move toward a consumer-centered model. Phase 1 consists of defining the legal framework via legislation. Phase 2 will be evaluating bids, and Phase 3 will be the terms of awarding and hiring the selected companies that meet the requirements for the transformation and modernization of our energy system will be negotiated, given PREPA is currently trying to work its way through bankruptcy, and all of the island's financial dealings must go through the federally appointed Financial Oversight and Management Board for Puerto Rico. Selling PREPA's assets could be a long process. Rosella highlighted how the island's electrical grid, which was severely dilapidated prior to the storms, even prior to the storms, was obsolete and working off a generation system that was 28 years older than the average electric power utility in the United States. Wow. Proceeds from the sale of assets and contracts will be used to capitalize the retirement funds of employees, Rosella said. So Puerto Rico has this whole thing right now with their bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's right. They're bankrupt, aren't they?
Yes, they are bankrupt, and they are being governed by a bankruptcy board that is located in New York City.
Okay.
And so more and more people are leaving Puerto Rico and coming to the mainland United States, especially Florida, because they have U.S. passports.
Right. Okay.
This is not immigration. This is just like going from New York to New Jersey. So the people who are remaining there have this terrible situation. Meanwhile, Puerto Rico awaits foreclosure wave as moratorium expires. So it's just piling on, isn't it? Just piling on.
It's really an example, Tim, of the failure of statism and monopolism and leftist.
Well, for a while. For a while, Puerto Rico was doing well because there was a tax incentive for U.S. companies to invest in Puerto Rico.
Okay,
but that incentive was done away with, and then Puerto Rico was kind of left high and dry.
I see.
Puerto Rico awaits foreclosure wave as moratoriums expire. This woman, Torres, sighed in relief when she received a letter from her bank 2 weeks after Hurricane Maria hit. She was among the hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans awarded a 3-month moratorium on their mortgage payments as the U.S. territory reeled from the storm's destruction. Believing she was temporarily freed from those financial obligations, the 46-year-old government worker drained her savings to pay for a $750 generator. See, people are now generating their own power.
Right. And
$786 worth of repairs for storm damage. But when Torres visited her bank in December, she said she was shocked to hear that she was behind on payments and that officials threatened to foreclose on her apartment and ruin her credit rating. Confusion and panic is spreading across the U.S. territory as the majority of moratorium agreements expire this month, with many people discovering that they never qualified for the moratorium in the first place or struggling to obtain extensions because they cannot pay what is owed to the banks. It is incredibly frustrating, Torres said. You feel like everyone is closing the door in your face. No one has a genuine interest in helping you. Legal experts say it is a scene that will repeat itself in the coming weeks and months on an island that already was seeing a sharp rise in foreclosures before the hurricane as a result of an 11-year-old recession. 11-year-old recession.
Wow.
That has forced government austerity measures. Even worse, experts say many Puerto Ricans stopped making payments on their mortgage after September 20 storm because they thought the moratorium was automatic when it was not. The storm knocked out power across the island, the largest blackout in U.S. history, preventing many from learning that they had to contact their bank to request a moratorium, said Ariadna Gaudreau, a professor and human rights lawyer. The big concern now is that mortgage foreclosures are going to spike, she said. We're going to see more homeless people, more homes foreclosed. Over almost a decade, the number of repossessed homes in Puerto Rico grew from more than 2,300 in 2008 to above 5,400 in 2016 and an estimated 6,200 or more last year. After the storm, foreclosures were temporarily suspended, and banks in the U.S. territory offered a moratorium on mortgages for those who qualified, as did the federal government. Moratoriums offered by the U.S. government have been extended to March, but banks have ended theirs. Banco Popular, which is Puerto Rico's largest bank, said more than 20,500 clients received moratoriums that expired in December and January. Bank executives said they were working with their clients, but stressed that they still need to collect what's owed. Those clients that truly are not responding to the bank's letters are those who really will be at risk of facing a foreclosure, said Jose Teruel, first vice president of the Consumer Credit Services Division at Banco Popular. Other large Puerto Rico banks declined to provide specific numbers. Oriental said only that 69% of its home loans were under moratorium by the end of November, while First Bank said about half of its clients were given moratoriums. Santander said 123,000 of its accounts, including both mortgages and personal and commercial loans, received moratoriums expiring in December and January. So Torres has hired a lawyer to handle her case. Puerto Rico's Office of the Commissioner of Financial Institutions is collecting more information. It is unclear how banks will handle the mortgages. Okay, she fears she will have to give up her apartment. I'm incredibly worried, she said. Yeah, so it's a mess in Puerto Rico. But of course, this kind of situation may play out in Illinois as well.
Yeah, and other places.
But especially Illinois, because Illinois,
They're bankrupt, right?
well, they are not really bankrupt because states are not allowed to be bankrupt.
Okay.
Yes, the law does not allow that because anyway, that's the law.
So what are they then?
So they raise taxes.
Okay.
Yeah, in Illinois, of course, people are moving
People
out of the
fleeing,
state.
right?
They're moving out of the state. Yes,
These states are going to have to start building walls on their borders, you know. Think about it.
barbed wire.
Big wall in California, Illinois.
Yeah,
Trump will be starting a trend, you know. We'll get
the
that
Mexico
stuff- get
border
that
may not
stuff
be the only
going.
place where we have walls. Yes. Yeah, but because of crime in Chicago, you know, again, 600 people were murdered last year in Chicago. Although they're saying, hey, it was less than the year before. That's not saying much. Yeah, and actually also Philadelphia, which has already come up, is in a very difficult financial situation as well. So things are going from bad to worse
But really,
in
Tim,
many places.
it's all a result of left-wing politics.
Yes, it is.
Detroit is like the classic example when Mayor Coleman, you know, and it completely desiccated inner-city Detroit. You know, it used to be a very prosperous place. You
Yes.
know? I remember years ago living there. There's a little place called Hamtramck around 6th Street with a Polish community, you know, which was tightly knit, family-oriented, productive. They were all like auto workers and other businesses. But that's really the thing, Tim. The inner cities having this democratic left-wing socialist policies for decades. And I would reckon that it's the same situation in Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And this is the fruits of it.
Absolutely, yes. Let's continue with the headlines before we run out of time here. We can come back to some of these articles if we have time. Fights, feuds, drama, soap opera, NBA sees audience build.
See, NBA is doing good.
Because of the fights, feuds, and drama.
And what? Players only, Tim. Players only in Sanctuary.
New tech spots cancer months before it occurs. End of men, male sex chromosome could disappear. Okay, we may be the last. We may be the last of the breed.
It's like global warming, eh?
Maybe we can look at that if we have time. 2020 vision. Oprah returns to Michigan to meet with voters. I thought she was yesterday's news. I guess she's not.
No.
Schumer withdraws offer on border wall. Candlelight. Well, White House says it was not really an offer in the first place. Candlelight vigil held for Taco Bell that burned down. Lazy lifestyles to cause surge in serious illnesses. And there you go. Get off the couch.
Yep.
Get into nature. Flu spike leaves seriously ill waiting on hospital beds. Yeah, the flu is pretty bad this year.
Yeah.
If drink coffee in California, be warned, may cause cancer.
Coffee.
But only in California.
In Brazil, it's really good for the
I
heart.
don't know.
3 or 4 cups a day. It's great for
Man
you.
threatens to kill CNN employees over fake news. White House sets first state dinner with Macron. President wins Davos raves for landmark tax cut. Trudeau slaps protectionism. Pope condemns evil of fake news used for political gain. The devil's work.
You talking about CNN or Trump's Twitter account?
We can go in there, yeah. We can look at it later.
Fake news
And
is
then there
the
are a
Pope
bunch
talking
of
about here.
stories about the Oscars, which I'll skip. RuPaul Drag Race, most radical show on TV. Nelly rape accuser asks judge to issue injunction against Nelly's penis. Me Too movement hits circus. Grandma clown resigns. Paper Elton John quits touring. Wow, he was still touring? All these artists from decades and decades ago, they're still touring. I mean, yeah, come on.
I think the lives,
it a break.
The lives are pretty empty.
All right.
They got nothing to do.
Let's look at this male chromosome crisis. End of men? Let's see what's going on there. Experts, again the experts. Experts reveal how the male chromosome could one day disappear completely. University of Kent researchers have found the Y chromosome is shrinking. The Y chromosome plays a critical part in the sexual reproduction of men. The male sex chromosome determines the biological sex of an unborn baby. It has been shrinking over generations and is expected to go extinct in less than 5 million years.
5 million years. So.
Okay, so we've got some time.
So I was getting worried there, Tim. You know?
Since the dawn of humanity, men have played a vital role in determining the sex of their offspring. The Y chromosome, carried by roughly half of a man's sperm, dictates whether a child will be male or female. If the Y chromosome is present, a child will develop into a boy. I think we know that, right? Although some people apparently don't know this.
Okay.
Not all boys have penises, right?
You have to remind me of this, Tim. I don't know. 7th grade biology.
I don't know. I bet they don't teach that in 7th grade biology anymore, because this is a new age where people are able to choose their own genders.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, 72 different genders.
Yes,
in New York
yes,
City,
yes.
I heard.
Yeah.
Wow. Where are they?
Now scientists think that the Y chromosome may disappear in less than 5 million years, leaving the future of men on planet Earth uncertain. In an article for the Conversation, Dr. Peter Ellis and Professor Griffin from the University of Kent discuss the implications of this genetic shift. Meanwhile, they have a picture of a man pictured XY sex. Look at the photograph, though. Yeah. It's Putin. They don't say who it is, but it's Putin with in a very manly pose,
right,
with his a rifle and without a shirt. And the caption says, "A man pictured possesses XY sex chromosomes. The women have XX. The Y chromosome is important in reproduction, but has little other function critical for life. As a result of the chromosome, has become shriveled and small over many generations." And the photograph is Russian President Putin.
That's an attack. That's an attack against men. That's explosive language. Shriveled and small. What are they talking about there? Give me a break. Come on.
Okay.
Stand up.
The Y chromosome may be a symbol of masculinity, but it is becoming increasingly clear that it is anything but strong and enduring. Although hey, we got 5 million years to deal with this problem, right?
Enduring, Tim.
We got 5 million years. We'll figure it out. Although it carries the master switch gene, SRY, that determines whether an embryo will develop into an XY or XX, it contains very few other genes and is the only chromosome not necessary for life. Women, after all, manage just fine without one. What's more, the Y chromosome has degenerated rapidly, leaving females with 2 perfectly normal X chromosomes, but males with an X and a shriveled Y.
Give me a break.
It's
just another example of the attack against men, Tim. Who's behind this?
In the same rate
Nancy
of
Pelosi,
if the same rate of degeneration continues, the Y chromosome has just
Trump over this, Tim.
Just 4.6 million years left before 6 million years left before it disappears completely. This may sound like a long time, but it isn't when you consider that life has existed on Earth for 3.5 billion years. The Y chromosome hasn't always been like this. If we rewind the clock to 166 million years ago, the very first mammals, the story was completely different. The early proto-Y chromosome was originally the same size as the X chromosome and contained all the same genes. However, Y chromosomes have a fundamental flaw. Unlike other chromosomes, which we have 2 copies of each in our cells, Y chromosomes are only ever present as a single copy passed from fathers to their sons. This means that genes on the Y chromosome cannot undergo genetic recombination, the shuffling of genes that occurs in each generation, which helps to eliminate damaging gene mutations. Deprived of the benefits of recombination, Y chromosomal genes degenerate over time and are eventually lost from the genome. Despite this, recent research has shown that the Y chromosome has developed some pretty convincing mechanisms to put the brakes on slowing the rate of gene loss to a possible standstill. For example, recent
in the fine print, right?
Danish study. Okay, so anyway, all right. So 5 million. Listen, they're making a prediction of what's going to happen 4.6 million years. I mean, we can't even predict the weather of next week. All right, so don't worry.
I think these guys should stick to climate change, really.
Okay,
go dig out the snow in Switzerland.
Yes,
and talk about global warming.
Yes, talk about global warming there. Let's see, what was the article? The other article that was interesting to us. Coffee. Okay, let's. Why is it that if you drink coffee in California, it could give you cancer? If you drink, judge is expected to rule whether 1986 state law meant to warn of potential harms applies to coffee. Out of Los Angeles, a California court case could turn every cup of coffee here into a jolt of reality on the risks of cancer. Under a state law, cancer warnings already follow Californians when they enter the lobby of apartment buildings, drive into parking garage, and sit down at restaurants. They also pop up on products including kitty litter, ceramic plates, and black licorice. How do they live with all that?
No idea.
Yeah. Now a state judge in Los Angeles is expected to rule in the coming months whether coffee should be labeled as carcinogenic under the 3-decade-old law, which is meant to warn Californians of potential harms. They should just put the label inside my door so I see it when I leave the apartment in the morning, said doctoral student Steve Herring, who moved to Northern California from Virginia in August. It's literally everywhere. Coffee is on the hot seat because the presence of this chemical's name I cannot pronounce, a flavorless chemical produced during the roasting process. And that same chemical is one of the more than 900 chemicals on the list of those known to the state of California to cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm. Known to the state of California.
Known to the state of California.
They've got the secret knowledge. Businesses must warn about the presence of any of the chemicals under the law, known as Proposition 65. The chemical used for industrial processes like making paper and dyes is also created during the cooking process for many baked and fried foods, including potato chips, bread, and French fries.
We'll stop eating them too.
So the only thing safe is boiled or steamed food? That's ridiculous, said Warren Fong, a retired oncologist in Orange County, California, who said he believes Proposition 65 warnings have become useless. You don't scream warnings at people when the risk is really low and can't change behaviors. Proponents say the law has kept consumers better informed and led to the reduction of chemicals in many products such as cadmium and jewelry and lead and baby powders. So I wonder, does California have a longer lifespan than the rest of the country? Do they have less cancer than the rest of the country? I don't know.
They get more
I don't have time to check that.
They get more illegal immigrants than the rest of the country, and they protect them.
Proponents said the coffee case has been brewing since 2010. Get that, brewing.
Yeah.
When Southern California-based nonprofit Council for Education and Research on Toxics, backed by attorney Raphael Metziger, sued dozens of coffee sellers and manufacturers. So there you go. It's lawyers. The coffee defendants, including Starbucks and Keurig Green Mountain, argue the trace amounts of this unpronounceable chemical in coffee are harmless and outweighed by health benefits of the drink. A Starbucks spokeswoman declined to comment. Keurig didn't respond to requests for comment. So anyway, this goes on and on. Putting a cancer label on coffee, Mr. Kessler testified, could deprive people to get caffeine from arguably less safe sources like soda or caffeine shots.
There you go.
An expert for the plaintiff argued that technology can reduce this unpronounceable chemical levels in coffee while still keeping an acceptable flavor.
Sounds like they want to go after Starbucks with a tort class action lawsuit. That's what that's all about.
Many California residents say they see no reason to change their behavior because of the warnings. Where are you going to go to escape the signs, said Helena Hamilton, a 53-year-old healthcare technology program in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm totally immune to it at this point. That's what happens to warnings, you know. They lose credibility. It's like the boy, the sky's falling, or the boy calling wolf. The boy who called wolf, kept calling wolf until actually wolf did show up and no one came to help him.
Should have had an AR-15.
Should have had an AR-15, but he didn't. And he tried to get people to help him, and no one would help him. All right, so that's about it for today. For the news, we got through the main news, I think. President Trump is going to Davos today, into the Lion's Den.
Yes, sir.
And he's going to tell people, you got to come to America. America is back. America is back. It's great again. So invest in America. I believe that's the thrust of his speech, according to my sense.
That's your prediction. We'll see what happens on Friday.
Friday, yes. So
maybe Saturday.
We'll have a
speech.
Maybe we'll have that
Saturday
speech on
morning.
Saturday. Yes, on Saturday morning. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in to today's King's Report.
Thank you, Ted.
And thank you, Ted. And may everyone have a good day. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.
Amen.